Hi, I'm Chris Sachs. I'm the Vice President of Value Enablement here at seoClarity, and today I'm going to talk to you about a topic that's really important to me, AEO and SEO, and how these are converging channels. These are not separate, they're not silos. And I want to try and convince you by the end of this video that you need to change your mindset and change the way that you work. So let's jump in. Here's the shared struggle. I work with clients all over the world, some of the largest websites and some of the best brands that are focused very heavily right now on this evolution that they're experiencing. And really what happened is that search hasn't slowed down. SEO hasn't slowed down. I know traffic is declining, impressions are up, but what has happened is this whole thing is actually shifted. And now what we're seeing is there's over 12 different surfaces that you as a brand are competing to get your brand visible on. And not only are you trying to compete to get visibility, but you need to win in all of these different surfaces. Everywhere from traditional Google to Google AI mode, AI overviews are still yet another surface within search. But then we have ChatGPT, we have Perplexity, we have local, all of these places. So I want you to start thinking a little bit differently. It's not just about all of a sudden shifting and thinking about mentions. It's thinking about how can I ensure that my brand has equal or at least the most optimized visibility and ability to sell or generate or convert in your channel. And AI doesn't invent authority. That's another misconception that I've been hearing from clients or people in general, thinking that all of a sudden LLMs are actually creating some new type of authority for your brand. It's actually not true. What AI search does, what the LLM is generating, is it's actually retrieving content, whether it's from your site or from others, and it's using that authority that already exists and simply putting it into an answer. And another interesting way that somebody told me once is to think about it as SEO is actually built to really go and find demand and understand what are the ways on how you can build additional visibility and grow your search channel, where AEO and GEO is actually shaping the synthesis. It's actually changing and evolving how people are interacting or learning about your brand. And one thing that I'm going to come clean and tell all of you, SEO is not dead. This is the good news. You are not a relic. If you have been working in this SEO world for 10 years, you are not outdated. You still have a job, I promise. All you've simply become is added yet another badge where you're the AI search expert. I think what most of the companies I work with are struggling with is not necessarily why am I losing, you're just mismeasuring or you're not reporting on the right type of metrics. And for a little while now, at least for the last year, there's been this obsession around what I refer to as these vanity metrics, citations and mentions. And while being mentioned in the LLM answer is really important, and while having citations is a really clear understanding on whether or not that search engine, whether it's ChatGPT, for example, feels that your brand is the most authoritative and that's why you're being cited, that isn't what you as a marketer should be hanging your hat on. At the end of the day, whether you're an SEO or you've put AI search or AEO or GEO in your title, you are still a marketer. And what you need to be focused on are the business outcomes that matter. So rather than obsessing and only reporting on citations, let's start talking about how we're winning the battle and winning conversions in whatever surface that we're battling in. Well, we've been noticing in ChatGPT over the last couple of months, in fact, very specifically in April and March 8th and April 19th, we saw a dramatic decline in the amount of citations that ChatGPT was showing in its answers. This decline told us a few things. One, we think that OpenAI, ChatGPT, as well as Claude or Perplexity, they're feeling more and more confident that people are trusting and believing in the answers that they're providing. And that may result in less dependency on justifying its answer with all of these different citations. That's an interesting thing to understand, but now, very recently, we saw that those citations jumped up again. This continues to reaffirm the importance of not chasing a vanity metric and going all in, especially with your executives, on how it is so important to get citations. It is so important to get mentions. These are steering metrics. These are secondary or tertiary metrics that help you understand what you need to do to get to those primary metrics, which are business outcomes, revenue, cost savings, conversions, growth. And here's a number that I really want you to remember. This is super important. Over a period of 9 months across thousands of prompts in SEOClarity's ArcAI database, we have identified that 40% of all answers coming from AI search have an inaccuracy. That is an insane amount of inaccuracy that we're finding in these answers. And really, it has a lot to do, not necessarily all hallucinations, it has to do with where these answers are getting its information from. Here's an example. Your brand, when talking about your products or your brand or your services, should really be the center of truth for all things that ChatGPT should be answering to its users. But oftentimes, more times than not, we're finding that websites, companies, clients that I work with, there are lots of gaps in the educational type content that really is needed to help fuel the LLM, to help fuel the answers. So what does ChatGPT do? It goes to third-party websites. It goes to websites like Reddit or other forums. It looks at other sites like Bazaar Voiced or Trustpilot, and it's relying on third-party or as many sites as it can to collect as much content, even if it's a user of Reddit complaining about your brand, in order to fill the gap to give the answer. So 40% is super critical, and all of the effort you may be putting into building all of this great content on your site, if you're not aware of what the inaccuracies are or where the answer may be populated from anyone else besides your brand, then that content isn't going to be helpful to you. So here's a really great example. Virgin Media out of the UK. We noticed that for a specific query, Virgin Media cheapest broadband price, that the AEO review actually got it correct. It provided the pricing, £17.99, which was exactly the correct price. Good job, Google. Google did the right thing. But then when we go to ChatGPT and put in a prompt that is very similar, asking the same type of question, ChatGPT got it wrong. It was actually a higher price point. And here's what we discovered. When we dug into that specific price point, we saw that that came out of a Reddit forum where somebody put in a question into the forum asking, what is the cheapest price or cheapest service that I can get from Virgin Media? And another user answered. And that data was already outdated. That pricing was already outdated. So what happened? Well, because it's Reddit, ChatGPT pulled that content and it decided to use that to fill whatever gap that it identified. Here's another great example, OLIPOP. So Chloe Edwards has this great LinkedIn post that talks about OLIPOP and what she found as a massive gap when she did her own searches in ChatGPT. And what she had discovered when looking for specific prompts related to sodas that offer gut health or gut healthy enzymes, what she identified is that every brand of soda similar to OLIPOP was included in the answer except for OLIPOP. And that's because OLIPOP talks specifically around probiotics. So OLIPOP's brand is all in on probiotics. But the sweet spot of somebody who's searching for gut health or gut healthy enzymes or something that isn't necessarily, they're not thinking yet that they need a probiotic, OLIPOP loses in that race. And that is a huge concern for a brand whose target audience is specifically looking for something that they have a solution for. Here's a great one. And Tanya, who's our Vice President of Marketing, really wanted me to talk about this. This is a really good example of how a mishap, a misrepresentation of brands take place in ChatGPT. Halara, Old Navy, Fabletics, super popular women's leggings brands. And if you go into ChatGPT and you do a search for women's wide leg, 32-inch inseam leggings, when we did this search and she saw in ChatGPT, none of these brands were actually mentioned. You see Lululemon, you see other known brands, but Halara, Old Navy, Fabletics were left out. Why? Because on their websites, they talk about how tall you are. So they actually have you size your height to then determine what size pants you should wear. Where most people probably think or search for their specific inseam. So one small difference in how those brands position their sizing left them out of the entire conversation. So this is where you need one closed loop, one repository of data, and one platform to allow you to understand every aspect of every surface where your brand may be visible. And if I think about two things that are super important, it's going to be understanding accuracy and not only knowing where there's inaccuracies for the prompts that matter the most to you, but also understanding why and where were the gaps being filled. What was the third-party website? What was the forum? What about my content put my brand in a position to win in ChatGPT? ArcAI's accuracy product does just that. We have the ability to not only crawl your site and create our own, your own knowledge of truth, but then we can go out and search for any specific prompt that you care about that's related to your products or services or your business. We can analyze the answers for those prompts and determine not only sentiment, but how accurate that answer is to the content that's on your site. We could tell you if there's a blatant misrepresentation. We could tell you if there's a slight inaccuracy. Perhaps the pricing is completely wrong. Perhaps they say, yeah, this is a really good sandwich shop, where you position yourself as the best sandwich shop. So accuracy of all the effort and resources you may be putting in to go out and create great content in order to continue to dominate and win in AI search. If you don't have an eye on how accurate you're being represented, then that content is going to be for naught. The other part that I hear so much around is prompts. And people have been concerned and obsessing about, am I tracking the right questions for AI search in ChatGPT? And ArcAI we've built a database of over 1 billion prompts. And our model allows you at a topic level, at a brand level, even customizing the context around your page or your website, where we can generate the exact correct prompts that you should be tracking based off of that topic. So ArcAI takes all of that guesswork and stress out of it, removing all friction and just giving you the correct set of prompts that you should be focusing on. So between having this great prompt research in ArcAI and the ability to track and monitor accuracy against your content and the answers is an absolute winning recipe to continue to win in all evolving surfaces that are happening in search today. Thank you so much for watching this video. Of course, myself or anyone here at seoClarity would be more than happy to tell you more about either one of these, ArcAI or seoClarity more, and how we can help you win in the evolved search battle, or of course, just answer any other questions you have.